Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 25th meeting of the Metro North Long Island Committee. We have one public speaker, Mr. Orrin Getz.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz, and I just want to let you know that on June 11th, 2012, I attended the New Jersey Transit Board meeting, and I spoke with Vice Chairman Bruce Mizell about the Pascack Valley line. Mr. Mizell is from Bergen County and very familiar with the Pascack Valley line. I was also able to get the Chairman Simpson of New Jersey Transit to consider putting an early getaway train on the Pascack Valley line on September 25th, which is before the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Long Island Railroad does it, so we're trying to get New Jersey Transit to do the same thing. And Vice Chairman Mizell also told me he'd like to hone in on the schedules on the Pascack Valley line. So I recommended that we put back the first train, 1600, and so that people can get to work in New York by 7 o'clock. Also, we told them that there's a big hole in the schedule from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And we said take the 251 train and extend that up to Spring Valley. There should be room in Woodbine to do that. And that would be a big improvement and plug up a big 2-hour gap on the Pascack Valley line schedule weekdays. And we realize that of all the counties in the MTA district, Rockland County gets the least benefit from the MTA, and only about 48 cents of every dollar coming in from Rockland goes back on benefits. And what I'm requesting is really minuscule, and the MTA should be able to do this without breaking their budget. We really need to make more improvements in Rockland County. It is just so unfair how much Rockland County puts into the MTA versus what it gets back. These small improvements would be greatly appreciated and should be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Getz. That's the end. Anybody else for public comment period? If not, approval of the minutes of May 21st. Are there any changes or recommendations on the minutes? Motion second. All in favor? Any change to the work plan? No change to the work plan. Before we move into the agenda, Howard, on behalf of Metro North, has a couple of citations to present.
Yes,
Howard.
it's my pleasure today. Good morning to everybody. It's my pleasure today. We're going to recognize two MTA police officers, and let me just tell the story because it's a great story about their bravery and how they helped a customer of Metro North. On Sunday, May 27th, MTA police officers Kieran Kalea and Paul Carufu responded to Croton Harmon Station to assist Serenity Green, a 1-month-old infant who was not breathing. Now, let me add, this was also in the middle of the night this happened. The officers jumped into action and quickly cleared the infant's airway and delivered 5 rapid back blows. The infant responded immediately and started breathing again. When emergency medical service personnel arrived, they determined Serenity was in stable condition. The infant and her mother were taken to Westchester Medical Center by ambulance for further evaluation. Metro North and the MTA would like to recognize the quick actions of these two officers who saved the life of this choking infant. And let me just mention, Police Officer Kalea has 8 years on the force, and Officer Carufu has 19. Could you please come up, because we want to thank you and give you a plaque for this great event.
Jim, go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, you're going to come as well? Yeah, right. Right, so let me why don't we get this? Maybe you want to move that out of the way, too. Joe?
Yep. Great.
Just tilt it a little bit. Great. Okay, now Paul.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more.
Right.
One more.
All right. Come on in, Jim. Here we go.
All right. Well, he's grabbing me. Great. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's mine. We switched chairs. That's okay.
Thank you, Howard. It's always a pleasure to start the meeting with such a great commendation, and congratulations again to our officers and MTA Police on that activity. Let's start with the agency president's report. Long Island Railroad is first this month. Alina.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And again, congratulations to the officers. That really is a phenomenal story and rescue. We're going to begin this morning by talking about our operations. I want to highlight the Belmont ridership. We ended up, notwithstanding the fact that it wasn't a Triple Crown race, we provided 42,990 customer trips, up 118% from 2011, which clearly was not marked out as a Triple Crown race when we only carried about 20,000 customers. So we were more than double. I think everybody decided it was a racing day and they went, regardless of whether there was a Triple Crown race. We deployed our ticket sellers equipped with handheld ticket issuing machines. And we wanted to do sort of a rapid-fire Penn Station assist. People come in to buy tickets, you end up having long lines. So we deployed ticket agents and ticket clerks on the floor holding the equipment. And I want to report that it was really a phenomenal amount of transactions that were done. 851 transactions in a very short time as people were buying tickets, $10,000, actually over $10,000. And then at Belmont, if people got on the train and got to Belmont without a ticket, they had to buy one at the gate. We did 585 handheld ticket dispensing sales. Now that's in addition to people going to the regular windows and buying tickets. But we've been trying to experiment with the handheld ticket issuing machines. They collect debit and credit cards. You've heard me comment in the past, many young people travel without cash. They want to use their debit and credit card everywhere. And this was clear evidence of how fast those transactions can be done with credit and debit. So we were very pleased with the Belmont ridership and the Belmont operation. We also had total ridership was up in May by 4%. Commutation ridership in that 4% was 2.8. Non-commutation was 5.8. Year-to-date ridership is up 4.5%. So we continue to see a resurgence of Long Island ridership. Reflectively think of some improvement in the job market. We also want to note that we expanded our Quiet Car pilot program. As many of you know, we've been doing various pilots on the Quiet Car. Metro North actually took the lead in the two railroads experimenting with it. Then we did Atlantic Branch. We also did Long Beach, Hempstead, and West Hempstead branches earlier this year, and now we've expanded to all electric service in and out of Penn Station. It's a voluntary and largely self-enforcing program. We have had some requests to perhaps designate cars with signage. We're going to look at what we can do on that. As you know, our car consists don't stay in the same order, so we have to make sure that the signage can be placed in the correct car. So we are looking at that, but so far the program has been very positive. A lot of good response from customers on it. I want to report to you on one operational issue that continues to require our attention in a very immediate way. We have 8 escalators out, and they're primarily on the Babylon branch, although one is at Hicksville on the main line. We've been undergoing major assessment by our new contractor and by a third-party independent assessment firm of the condition of the escalators. And while we recognize that these outages have caused significant inconvenience to our customers who rely on escalators, what we have found is that they are just not in a state of good repair, and they are not in a condition that the new vendor feels comfortable putting them in service. We have to machine tool many of the parts. They're on orders, have been placed. We are trying to expedite the production, but they go from everything to brakes, controllers, cone plate assemblies, and in some cases new handrails. So we are working hard to monitor that, but it may be as much as another 8 to 10 weeks before I'll have all 8 returned to service. And we are looking at improvements in our program so that we understand how the equipment got to the state it's in under the previous contractor. I also want to note that we have moved forward on our M9 pre-bid conference. As many of you know, we had a very good response on the Phase 1 proposal. 7 firms attended the pre-bid conference on June 20th. We are moving forward on the 76 Long Island Railroad base order cars. We are postponing the M9A procurement, which are the federally funded cars. As you'll remember, you approved RFP for both. We're moving forward on the M3 replacement cars. We are delaying the M9A procurement probably for about a year based on the Eastside Access schedule. And finally, I did want to have a moment where we just highlight an important program we finished in our capital program. That's the Babylon Car Wash. As many of you know, this was an ERA-funded American Recovery Reinvestment Act program. It was one of those, you had to have shovel-ready plans. We happened to have the car wash plans. We were able to put this in as a $25 million ERA project in 2009. It had a very strict deadline as to when we had to finish the project. And I'm very pleased to say that we are now in the process of commissioning the new car wash. We have taken beneficial use. Over 70% of the train wash water is recycled. The car wash produces 600 gallons per minute of concentrated spray to clean cars. And mounted on the roof is a 35 kilowatt solar panel system, which generates electricity to support all of the house power needs. Rich Oakley, who is head of our capital programs, has a couple of slides just so that you'll see what it looks like. It was a very tight piece of property, and I want to really thank the Village of Babylon for all of their cooperation. The mayor, Scordino in particular, was extremely supportive. Rich.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. So we should. Yeah, hold on. I'll tell you when. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, how are we doing?
Good? I think we're getting there. All right.
There you go.
Okay, just one more slide, please. Okay. Yeah, the construction of the new Babylon train wash facility is now complete. This $25.5 million project was funded by ARA, as indicated earlier, and created approximately 230 jobs. The new train wash includes a completely automated state-of-the-art system that is environmentally friendly. Over 70% of the train wash water is recycled. The new train wash located in Babylon replaced the 35-year-old facility. Throughout the construction, the Long Island Railroad maintained a good neighbor policy with the Village of Babylon and nearby residents. Landscaping and fencing have been provided to isolate Long Island Railroad operations on the right-of-way from adjacent golf course. If you see, there's a golf course to the right. The train wash facility consists of wash equipment building and an archway 300 feet long, covering the lead track to Long Island Railroad Yard just east of the facility so that trains can be cleaned prior to entering the yard. The system was designed to clean both diesel and electric fleet. Mounted on the roof is a 35 kW solar panel system which generates electricity to support the house power needs. Exterior lighting and CCTV cameras are providing added safety and security around the perimeter of the facility. The wash was part of a Long Island Railroad train wash strategy that began in 1990 and represents a third generation of automated wash systems on the railroad. The prior two washes put in service in 1998 and 2002 are running and have experienced no downtime to date. The train washes were designed to ensure reliability, serviceability, and longevity. All equipment is accessible. Standard-sized duplex pumping systems were installed to reduce wear and tear and to avoid downtime during service. Exposed surfaces in the wash plant areas are corrosive resistant. The wash is fully automated and no longer requires a full-time operator. Use of the programmable logic controllers allows maintenance of equipment personnel to adjust parameters that affect system performance and efficiency. The human-machine interface, the graphic display shown here on the right, provides the automatic and bypass manual control of the wash system with full status indication. This same system provides real-time monitoring of the system from our centralized maintenance facility. The track structure shown consists of precast concrete slabs with direct fixation rail. The drainage trough in the center is utilized to collect and direct water to the plant where it is either recycled or processing prior to disposal. Wash water that is not recycled passes through numerous filters and properly treated to meet strict standards before it's released to the local system. The wash is a multi-stage system with 5 arches: a detergent arch, a brush arch, high-pressure arch, rinse arch, and water strippers to eliminate streaks on windows before it leaves the wash. This photo on the left shows one of our M7s after it has been passed through the detergent arch and the brush arch. On the right is a photo of the M7 as it passes through the high-pressure rinse arch. During this stage, a deluge of water is applied to the equipment. Water is applied at 350 psi pressure, producing 600 gallons a minute before it is removed from the surfaces. The strippers are 7.5 horsepower blowers, each delivering 3,000 CFM of air pressure. And that is the end of the presentation.
It's good, Rich. Thank you very much. Again, I want to say, we were very pleased with that project, with the ability to use the ERA funds and to come in on schedule and on budget. And that really concludes our presentation.
Any questions for Helena? Jonathan?
One small question, thank you. The jobs created number that you cited, that was construction jobs?
Construction jobs. Mm-hmm.
Charles?
Let me use Hicksville, which you and I have discussed, as an example of the escalator situation. Have you given any thought to providing at least a meager inventory of parts which are used across the system or through much of the system, so we don't have escalators down for months on end?
Yes. In fact, we are, as you probably recall, we're putting a whole new unit together. We've transferred it to our station operations. We've recruited qualified escalator inspectors to actually be on our own staff to supervise the contractor, and we're developing a inventory. For example, some of the basics like comb plates. We need to have those in our own inventory. And we need to have those readily available for upgrades in the escalators. So we are moving toward a very different operation. We will have an inventory of parts, and we will have more up-to-date inspections, even as we move forward to replace the equipment.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Howard?
Okay. Good morning again. Thank you. I have a few items to report on. Let me start with the operation. For May, our on-time performance was 97%, which is beneath, well, very, very good, still beneath what we have been operating. First half of May, we had a series of different events. None of them were systemic. We then recovered, so we were a little bit lower. We then recovered in the second half of May, had a very strong operation. I will point out to the committee, and I mentioned this a few months ago, is that we're now in the time when we again have two of the 4 New Haven Line tracks are out of service for the catenary replacement job in the state of Connecticut. That puts our operation always at risk if something goes wrong in that section. Furthermore, even on a normal day, trains now go through that section slower, and they're typically operating 4, 5, 6 minutes late by the time they get through there. So that will be an ongoing challenge. I will also mention that last week when the temperatures hit 100 degrees on Thursday, we had numerous incidents on the New Haven line of sagging wire, of signal problems, of the bridges. The 4 movable bridges were closed to river traffic because if we opened them, we could not have closed them. So that line, particularly as we get into the hot weather over the next month, that's something we have to watch very, very carefully when it gets to those kinds of temperatures. On a positive note, we had on June 3rd, we had our 5th perfect day on a I think that was a Sunday, and then again yesterday we had another perfect day, so that's now up to 6 this year when all the trains ran on time for the whole day. Year to date, we're operating at 98.3%. I do want to just very briefly mention 2 incidents that came to light over the past month since we last met. The first one was the incident where the engineer was seen on a YouTube, was operating a train while reading a newspaper. This happened, we found out about this on a Wednesday night, sometime after 9 o'clock. We found out about this. This is obviously a clear and serious violation of our operating rules. By the next morning, we had identified the employee, we had removed the employee from service without pay, and we begun disciplinary action. We also had established a communication effort with all our engineers, reinforcing the rules, and again explaining that this behavior is not acceptable. I will tell you that on Friday, the engineer in question resigned from Metro North, so we are now proceeding forward, making sure everyone who's running trains is kept aware and focused on what they should be doing and what the rules are. This is clearly unacceptable behavior. Subsequent to that, there was then a series of articles that engineers are blocking cab door windows with the insinuation that's being done to so they were hiding something. That is not the well, let me step back a second and say that there are issues with glare in when train operators are running trains. In particular, there are 2 times when that's a major concern to us. One is when you enter the Park Avenue Tunnel. If any of you have ever been on the front of a train, you know how you go from it's very light, and remember it's facing south, so you have a lot of light coming in, and then you hit the tunnel and it's dark. So you have glare there, and at night you also have glare. So what we have done to deal with that is we have done a couple of things. One is we're in the process of putting on polarized glass in many of those windows, which will deal with the glare issue. We've made it clear to our engineers that in those cases where we have polarized glass, you cannot put anything up to block the window. In those cases where you don't, we continue to leave it up to the discretion of the engineer, and we're doing a best practice review of other railroads, including Long Island and Transit Authority and others, to see what they do to how they deal with a similar issue. And we'll have that done in a few weeks, and then we'll have a path going forward. Also, we at our PCAC meeting forum, which was about a week or so ago, they raised some issues about this. We sent a memo, which I copied all the board members on, explaining how we were addressing this issue, and I thought that was a good dialogue with the PCAC. Beyond that, I will mention that at that meeting, it was a good dialogue, again, with the members and also some of the public. We focused on the improvements in Metro North and our transformation over the past 30 years. We talked about some of our upcoming challenges, which primarily had to do with retirement and succession planning and the condition of the New Haven line in the state of Connecticut, which are 2 of our biggest issues. With regard to ridership, May was another positive month. Rail ridership went up 1.5%. Led mostly by non-commutation ridership. So year-to-date, we're up 3.5%, and that's commutations up 1.9 and non-commutations up 5.9. May was affected by a number of things, including rainy weather. Also, we had a day, you may recall, a Sunday morning. We had no train service for about 5 hours because of a software problem. So we clearly lost a significant number of riders that day. That would have made the numbers higher. One thing I do want to point out, we continue to see no discernible ridership loss from the Connecticut fare increase on January 1st. With regard to financials, the results in April continue a very positive trend. Operating revenues are 3.9% over budget, due basically to higher rents in Grand Central and higher ridership. Operating expenditures are 7.4% below budget, and that's due to lower overtime and also control of material usage costs. Some of that is attributed to the milder weather in the winter. The rest is attributed to a variety of efforts we have underway to continue to control and reduce our cost. On that front, I do want to mention we're doing a couple of things that we'll talk about later in this meeting. One is on our schedule change that goes in on July 2nd. One of the things we have done is we are looking at it, and we are implementing a different way of doing our construction projects to save money. And so what is involved is we're looking either at expanding the windows in terms of when our people can work so they can work continuously, somewhat similar to what the subway system is doing with Fast Track. We are giving extended outages. We're also piggybacking projects. The impact on that is that it then affects it makes it a little bit harder on the service reliability end. You're trading away, you're basically giving away a certain amount of risk. If something goes wrong, it'll affect the service to a greater extent. But at the same time, we believe that it's a good way to balance money saved versus operational reliability. You'll hear also about later on Grand Central. There's a whole series of events we do, activities in Grand Central to make more money. In between, Randy Fleischer is going to give a report, and Nancy Marshall will talk about that. And finally, we're also in the midst of trying to find a restaurateur for Poughkeepsie Station. For those of you who are not familiar with Poughkeepsie, it's a beautiful station. It was designed by the same people who did Grand Central. It's a big old facility. We have fixed it up, and we're now looking to bring in a high-end restaurateur there. At Tarrytown, I do want to mention we have finally completed the Tarrytown project. It's on time, within budget. This was this is a complete redo of that station. This was an ARA project, similar to Helena mentioned. It complemented, we spent about $35 million. We spent another $5 million in a Tarrytown station. This is a critical intermodal facility for everyone coming over from Rockland County on the bus, as well as a huge station in Westchester. And this is the last of a 10-year project where we rebuilt every single Hudson Line station between Croton Harmon and Morris Heights in the Bronx. So this was the last one. It's been a terrific project. It's been about $300 million, and it's really brought those stations up to be absolutely terrific. Two more items to mention. One is in June we had our meeting west of Hudson up in Orange County, talking about a west of Hudson access study. Looking at how to preserve the right-of-way between Stewart Airport and the Port Jervis line at some point for future rail use, as well as how to improve the Port Jervis line. So this was the hearing on Phase 1 where we documented the results, and in Phase 2 we're going to then take those further so we can then have some actionable items on both fronts. And finally, I want to say on June 6th, I, along with Bob Lieblong, went up with MTA board members Jim was there, and Bob Bickford, Jim Blair, and Carl Wartendike into the New York State Assembly chamber to receive a resolution by the New York State Assembly recognizing us on the getting of the Brunel Award. So that was a very nice event. They read that to us. We received the resolution, and it was really a high point for us, reflecting all the work over the past few years. With that ends my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Howard? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is the appropriate moment to do it, and it's a question actually not only directed to Howard and Metro North, but to Helena as well and Long Island Railroad. And it's prompted by the report last week that summarized some of the findings of the state controller's forensic audit of, in this case, Metro-North. Gives rise to a number of questions. Let me first state the purpose of this larger question, and that is to try to drill down a little deeper into what I thought we were going to discuss at last month's meeting, which was workforce representation numbers, both in Metro-North and in Long Island Railroad. We had less than a fulsome conversation about it. I was disappointed by that, but this is the moment to have that, at least a part of that conversation, especially in view of the questions relating to how an intern is hired, prompts questions about recruitment and process, how engineers are hired, also prompts questions about process and recruitment, hiring of family members, and more particularly direct supervision of family members and recommending family members. Those are all sensitive subjects, I know, but certainly worth discussing at this committee meeting. Howard, I think you indicated to me in our phone conversation that you wanted to talk about the internship program and how it works, and my issue about recruitment. But could you and Helena both address the issues that I've raised with respect to the workforce representation numbers that you reported at our last meeting last month, and where we're going from here?
Let me start with that. If you want, we can then talk further about our intern program, which Freddie and I have talked about, which is really a keystone of how we look going forward to get new people into Metro-North. With regard to the numbers that were presented, there were really a couple of issues that I wanted to highlight to the committee. The first thing is we are working with Michael Garner's staff on looking at to make sure the numbers that Metro-North is providing is done in a way that's consistent with the other MTA properties. There is at least a question for Metro-North that we are doing things somewhat differently than how the other agencies are. So the first step is, because it's important, we have to have an accurate representation of what's going on before we figure out what else we need to do. We are doing that right now.
Please forgive the interruption, Howard. Are the numbers as they are currently reported through the MTA to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission?
I believe the answer is yes. Ray? Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Please continue.
We're talking about, as you know, Freddie, we're talking about the potential pool, and are we calculating that in the same way, in the same fashion, or the same based on the same assumptions as the other agencies? So we will be looking at that, and I committed in the conversation with Freddie to, if we make any changes, we'll come back and fully explain what those changes are and what the rationale is before we do that. The second part of it is that we are also working with Michael Garner and his staff on looking at what actions we can take where we have issues of representation. And so we are in the midst of looking at what that is. As I say, we're evaluating exactly where we stand. Some of our numbers are, I think we're very close to what's required. Others, we may be slightly off. I think historically we've been making improvements. But we are working, and we said that the goal is by September that we would be back to say, here are what our strategies are. Now, with regard to our intern program, I've shared some information with the chairman and with Freddie and Jim as well on the question of how we are putting together our intern program. And since raised, let me just take a minute on that. This is a critical program where we have done, and we're very pleased with the fact, we have hired 53 interns at Metro-North across all departments to help us basically to find new employees, to introduce many people to Metro-North who are not aware of us, as well as to help identify a future pool of employees. And this is critical to us. We are facing a huge turnover and potential shortfall at Metro-North starting next year. We did a wide-ranging recruitment across the United States. We sent the numbers to Freddie, asked me the breakdown by gender, by ethnicity. It's an extremely diverse group, more diverse than what we have in our workforce today. And it's a program that we are very pleased with because we think that coming out of this and future programs, we'll be identifying the future employees in Metro North. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. If we had more questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
I still have, I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Actually, Howard. My last communication with you requested some kind of indication as to the process for recruitment.
Right.
What is the process for recruitment?
Okay. Well, first I said I was putting something together for you. I just didn't have it by this meeting.
You could tell me?
We went out, the recruitment, I'm going to ask Ray if I miss anything here. We went out, we contacted, I don't know, over 100, how many universities contacted, 100?
To about 20 different job fairs.
Right.
Most of them locally in the Northeast. It was close to 100 different universities, from community colleges to Ivy Leagues, that we sent the solicitations to, notifying them that we would have these internships available to their undergraduate and graduate students. So the recruitment effort was as broad net as we could possibly cast, at least in our opinion. We'll be happy to show you all of the schools that we sent to and the job fairs we went to, and if there are ones that you think we missed for next summers, we'll be certainly happy to add them to the recruitment effort, but we tried to be as broad-based as we could in the schools that we contacted.
Well, the fact remains, thank you, the fact remains that the controller's audit pointed out to at least one case where that recruitment method was not especially followed. Can you address that?
No, I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
There was a...
oh, you're saying, right.
Okay.
You're speaking of an issue about, this is not the intern program. You're speaking of the hiring.
This is the intern program.
No, the state control didn't speak about the intern program.
Okay.
I'm not quite clear.
All right, go right ahead.
You're speaking of the issue of the hiring of an individual who was related to a senior person?
Yes.
Okay. So I think, Fred, because there's also a newspaper article about the intern program, so I'm not clear which of the two you were addressing.
The latter.
The latter. Okay. That program is part of it. Ray, correct me if I'm wrong again, that was also, we posted on the internet all these job applications, correct, for the interns?
Yeah, the posting was on our internet site for months, and we also reached out to the schools that I had said, and there were close to 100 schools that we sent the solicitation
so people, to the case that was reported there, an individual responded to what's on the internet, which is very common. And then that person went through the process, as did all the interns, of a selection process. We have looked at, the state control did not look at this. We have done an internal review of the hiring that was highlighted in that newspaper article through our legal department, and every single procedure that we have has been followed. There was no issue of any inappropriate action being done. We had, Freddie, because of the other event you're referring to, we tightened our policies 3 years ago on hiring and how we deal with issues of employee hiring. And all those policies were followed. I mean, in the end of the day, one of the things that's true at Metro North, it's true in most transit agencies across the MTA and throughout the industry, is one of the strongest places railroads get employees is from family members. And the issue is that we have to have appropriate process in hiring those people. We do not want to disqualify them. That would be at a great loss to the institution if we ended that type of arrangement. But it has to be done in an appropriate fashion. And I believe, based on everything I've seen, that was done in the case of the people highlighted in that newspaper article. That was followed. And that we have strong policies in place to ensure that will be done. That will be how we will follow hiring of family members.
Well, since, Howard, in looking at the result of the numbers, as reported to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, you frequently go behind them and look at policies and practices, especially with respect to recruitment.
Right.
Would you be willing to share those policies and practices with the board?
Sure.
Thank
I'd be
you.
happy to, but again, I would do it within the framework of here's what we're doing and here's how we're looking to make improvements, which is what's being done for September.
Well, certainly with respect to answering the question, because I accept at face value, of course, your assertion that your statement that we're following all the rules.
Right.
However, in order to arrive at better workforce representation numbers, it is appropriate to look at recruitment methods, policies, and practices. So it's not only limited to what has been reported, but overall, how you get to a place. You understand what I'm saying, Howard, right?
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and I think what I said was, first you start with understanding where you are, which is why we're looking at the numbers, and then from that you figure out how do you move them in the direction you want.
Helena?
Commissioner, I have to say that I'm going to need to prepare some information for you. I didn't recognize that this was a line of questions that you wanted to pursue.
Certainly.
I can say that we had worked hard on our diversity report that we filed last month. Long Island Railroad was actually reporting in greater detail than the federal government wanted. So they asked us to summarize our reports more and reduce them. And we did follow that requirement. We're consistent with the MTA's requirements for filing. We have an internship program, but it's a much smaller one. I have to get the details on that. And we have longstanding policies in place on anti-nepotism. And I think that 3 years ago, Metro North used our policies to try to develop some of their own. I do want to add to Howard's comment, railroading is sometimes a family affair, and that was a particular issue at Long Island Railroad. Actually, before my tenure, the railroad had taken a lot of measures to diversify the workforce because the railroad families were predominantly, white male. And if we kept, sticking with that tradition, we would lack diversity in our workforce. So we really made a conscious effort to have new outreach, job fairs, recruitment strategies to really diversify the workforce. As you could see from last month's numbers, there are some areas where we're still really striving to get better diversity. There's no question, the number of women on the maintenance floor, is still very small. We're seeing some growth in different segments of the population that are wonderful, but there are others that are still lagging. So I'll come back to you on that. We work very hard to diversify the workforce and recognize that that's really been a long-standing change in the Long Island Railroad's approach, and it really needed to happen. But I have to say, I can't take credit for it. It happened before I became the president.
Thank you. Finally, let me just say to both of you that getting behind the numbers generally requires you to look closely at recruitment strategies, policies, and practices. I do accept, obviously, that you're telling me that no rules have been broken. Certainly not with respect to nepotism. Although the allegations that have been raised in the Comptroller's report are troubling to me. And they should be troubling to everyone around these tables.
Can I just clarify one thing? Mm-hmm. The Comptroller's report, which dealt with the hiring of another individual 4 years ago, that is now being investigated. That is not, I did not want my statement to cover that. My statement covered the issue of the people who were talked about in a newspaper article, 4 employees. With respect to the Comptroller's report, that is still being fully investigated right now by the IG with our full cooperation. So I do not want to say that rules were followed there.
Good. Is there, I know I said finally, is there a moment when Metro North and LIRR and all of our operating divisions will find it appropriate to restate the policies on nepotism and their relationship to the public officers law, for example?
Yeah, I don't have any problem. I mean, we should coordinate across, and Joe say
We can do
we
that.
can tell you, what the policies
Okay.
are.
Right, we should do that across all of the agencies, both in coordination, as well as with the diversity committee, who's solely charged with that. We have a meeting, sorry. What's causing the back? We will, sir.
Thank you so much.
Could I add something? Turn off your mic, Freddie. Thank you. I want to reinforce something that my friend, the commissioner, has said, and then also go back to the question of how the catchment areas for each agency are determined. And this is really directed to Mike Garner because it's going to fall on him to help us understand this. I think it would be very important if at the next diversity meeting, which is next month, you explained to the committee and to any other person who wants to join us how that catchment number is arrived at, because looking across the agencies, everyone is different, and it's not clear to me how you determine that area coverage. The other thing that seems a bit odd when I look at these numbers is that not all agencies have all of the categories of jobs. In fact, not even the two railroads have the same categories. So that doesn't make sense to me. But the more important issue has been made by Commissioner Ferrer. Our intent in looking at these numbers is not to criticize how they're calculated or anything of that nature. It's to get to the bottom of how we're doing recruitment, how we're doing promotions, and whether or not we are doing it in a diverse and equitable manner. That's really what we want to focus on here. So, and then lastly, I'd like to mention that unfortunately I'm unable to be here in July, and Commissioner Ferrer will take the committee.
Thank you, Susan. I believe that additional information will be forthcoming from both of the railroads at both the July and then also the September quarterly report to hopefully answer a number of the questions which have been raised and to provide additional information as to how the numbers are derived at. But I think we would all agree with Susan that the issue is not how the numbers are derived at, but what the numbers actually mean and how they can be used. The purpose of the numbers is not to create numbers, but to use them in a way to improve the diversity of our workforce. And that's the point I think you're trying to make, and that's, I think, the point everybody would agree with. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? Thank you, sir. Capital Construction, Michael.
Good morning. At the CPAC meeting in May, we have presented a revised budget and schedule. The reforecasting process was very rigorous and included all key stakeholders, including the independent engineer, the Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, the Federal Transit Administration, and the program oversight consultant. I would like to actually bring you up to date as to some of the things that happened in the last month. We have completed one project that was substantially completed, the Grand Central Terminal Expansion Joint Replacement. And in addition to that, we are continuing to make strides on the 55th Street underground ventilation plant, and is ahead of schedule by a couple of months. We have actually completed Tunnel D in Queens, and the completion was May 29th. We expect to complete Tunnel BC, that includes also a lot of coordination with Long Island Railroad track outages, sometime mid-July. We expect to start excavation under a certain track July 6th. But what I wanted to show you today is what is probably the most riskier, both engineering and construction segment that we have in Queens. This is a tunnel that is 120 linear feet under Northern Boulevard with a cost of about $850,000 per linear foot. Just to get a sense, this is what we refer to as the Q-tip. Just right there is Northern Boulevard. The pink area is the crossing. That's about the size of that tunnel. And we have a lot of activities going on at the same time. We have 4 major contracts at the same time operating in this particular area. The mining process that you'll see right now, I'm just showing you the overlay or where the tunnel is. And when what we call Drift 2, we are 88 feet, and Drift 1, 48 feet. We expect, go on. The excavation is done way below. This is from the early access chamber. Northern Boulevard is right there with the elevator on top. And this gives you a cross-section of what we're doing. We have the existing I&D subway that we are looking at, and this is, on top of it is the roadway, and then we have the foundation of the elevated structure with piles going all the way down, and Northern Boulevard crossing is just under it. To do that, we had to create a frozen arch, and this is 11 feet below the bottom of the I&D tunnel. This is the EM and R lines. The F peels off before that. And in addition to that, we had to support the elevated line separately to make sure that it will not create any settlements during construction. We expect to dig it into, we have 7 different drifts that we're going to take out. What you saw in the prior one was 1 and 2, that this is the upper left and upper right. This is a picture as we are starting into the area. This is drift number 1 to the left. And when we're done, this is the arch that we expect to create. Now, is the next? Okay. I'm just going to try to show you some of the work that is being done right now in drift 1 and 2 to get a picture to understand how complex that is. This is drift number 1. We are now 48 feet. Most of the excavation is done manually. This is clay. And we support it. We advance 4 feet. We provide all the support, structural support. It's a temporary structural support. There will later on be a final one. And we continue to move on. Right now we are 48 feet on the other one, and this is drift number 2. We are 88 feet out of 120, so we have about 32 feet to go until we hit the other side. I just wanted to... No, it is, we're putting reinforcement, and then we shotcrete. And then later on, we're going to come in and do the final. And we're going to do 1, 2, then we're going to go, in effect, 3, 4. So we're going to go down on each side, and then we start from the upper drift. That will be 5, 6, and 7. Very, very risky in the sense that we have to make sure that the tunnels and the subways do not move, and we're going to support the piles of the elevated on this particular thing when it's done. For the moment, we are allowing the piles to stay, and as we are providing the final, we will then resupport them. Right now, the whole thing is frozen. Actually, we were supposed to have a 6-foot frozen arch. It turns out that a lot of the dirt below that is frozen. It's primarily clay and in layers. So we also still have water that we have to deal with. Yes, it is wet. I was inside there to look at that, and so just kind of, you see the layers. It's almost a great lesson for anyone studying geotechnical engineering. In its totality, when we are done with the final support, we're supposed to be done next year, about April. The excavation is supposed to end sometime towards the end of this year, probably in November. We are slightly behind right now, and we're looking of the ways to mitigate that, and we think we have a way to mitigate any delay on that. So, because there are many contractors working in one particular area, so we need to be cognizant of that. But we don't expect for that to delay us in construction.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Question.
Oh, Ira?
Yeah, you had mentioned shotcreting. I know that there was that accident, I believe it was in December, where unfortunately someone died as a result of the shotcreting process. I just wondered what was changed to prevent any repetition of that?
The unfortunate accident that happened in the cavern of the East Side Access had to do with the fact that a worker was standing, in effect, in an area where he was not to be standing there. So a lot of the work rules we have changed. This is totally different because the height is absolutely different. We're only doing 4 feet at a time. It's a different type of shotcrete application. That one was basically to smooth the surface up in the ceiling. It's totally different. So there is really no similarity per se. But we are following very, very rigorous safety procedures so that will not occur. And it's primarily where you're allowed to be for how long and so forth, because it takes a certain amount of time for the shotcrete to set.
Well, last question has to do with safety. Again, I just noticed we continue to be above average on the injury rate at East Side Access. It's come down a little bit, but I wonder what's being done to get it at acceptable levels, average, or is this?
You are correct. What you're seeing is, in effect, primarily, in order for us to get, and if you see from last year, from November last year, the trend is going in the right direction. Yes. The calculation is the amount of hours that injury time vis-a-vis the total amount of hours that we're actually spending working. So that ratio is the one that drives it. So the decrease is rather slow, but it is in the right direction. We had some blips upwards in certain times, and we have stopped the work it just happened just not long ago, where we had a total stoppage that we instituted in order to make sure that everyone is rebriefed and to the safety procedures, and a lot of the contractors have made a lot of changes to address that. I would say that one of the contractors that impacted us the most was the Drogado Jadlau, that they had originally lots of small accidents, and that has been, the trend there has been changed.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Chief, police report.
Good morning. We were up 2 incidents for the month of May compared to last year, 2012 versus 2011, mainly due to 5 assaults. We had 5 assaults versus 0 last year in 2011. 4 of those we made an arrest. The one that is open, we do have an individual identified, and that investigation is ongoing. The book reflects we're up 4 incidents for the year. We're actually up 3 due to 1 reclassification. However, we are down in robberies 18%. 23 versus 28, and electronic devices continue to be the bulk of those robberies. If there's any questions.
Any questions for the chief?
Yeah,
Ira?
Yeah. For theft of electronic devices, is that the grand larceny? Generally, that would be grand larceny in the report.
If it's over a certain dollar amount or taken from the person without force, then it would be grand larceny. If it's taken, no matter what the cost of it and any use of force, then it's a robbery. So it's both.
The grand larcenies can also have other thefts in there.
I think it's $500 still. Oh, okay. It's $1,000. And then, so, some of them in petty larceny? And they wouldn't even be shown here? Some of the phones?
The majority of the phones would be felony, but there could be some petty larceny phones.
Okay,
Like somebody leaves most of those would be unattended property. Somebody leaves a phone in a pocketbook.
I just noticed the arrest. I know Commissioner Merdler had asked for the arrest. They're here, and it shows the greatest arrest is petty larceny.
Right.
So.
A lot of those arrests are from stores, the commercial establishments that we have, the shoplifting, exactly.
Okay, let's move on to information items. Helena, page 34.
I'm going to go quickly here. You will see a staff summary as our first information item, and it involves the BC tunnel construction that Mike Horodniciano mentioned. We need to put in an alternate service plan while that construction is underway. We've talked about this previously, but I wanted you to see that there are 3 eastbound peak trains that will be canceled, PM peak trains. 8 other trains will be rerouted, and 5 trains will require schedule adjustments. We have devised this program with our train crews in a way that the moment Michael is done, I can put the regular schedule back in place. So we're not going from timetable to timetable. We're doing an insert, which is, I think, advantageous for our customers, and it'll allow us to really have the flexibility to go back to a regular schedule. We are going to provide an added level of protection because when we lose one of the eastbound tracks, we'll be operating on just 2. If anything were to happen, I'd have only 1. That is significantly reduced flexibility in terms of a Penn Station operation. So we're going to do our best to ensure we have no service disruptions during that time period. We're going to deploy added rescue equipment. We're going to have people stationed in key locations in the event that anything happens. We will have an increased, fast response time. Now, I want to mention that we anticipate that these schedule changes will result in, 10 to 15 to 20-minute delays out of Penn. It's never smooth when you're trying to add extra people to already crowded trains. So I will be asking for relief on the OTP standard so that we actually look at the schedule and make an adjustment, and that will be reflected when we report back to you on on-time performance. We're coming off May, which has just been tremendous on-time performance for Long Island Railroad. We had 5 100 rush hours, 100% rush hours, 4 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. But again, PM peak is always the challenge for us out of Penn Station, where we're coordinating with Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. So we're very conscious of what this means in the PM, and we'll be working closely with East Side Access. Our next information item is the retail development. I'm going to do all of them and then take questions. Retail development at Penn Station. We are fully leased up. Lease revenues are greater than 2010. But that being said, Penn is Penn, and the leases are, substantially less revenue than you're going to hear about from Metro North, especially as Metro North goes forward with its 100-year celebration. Our key points on Penn Station, I will point out on page 43 and page 44. We continue to make tremendous infrastructure investments in Penn. Millions and millions of dollars go into the ventilation plant, the total track replacement, the standpipe system, improvements in HVAC and escalator replacement. We are very focused on, trying to keep the track platform, signal systems, and safety systems up to date and in place. On page 44, you see mention of our Penn Station Vision project. We have engaged AECOM. They've been doing a really outstanding job meeting with many, many stakeholders. Amtrak and New Jersey Transit have been big participants as well. As you know, it's funded by all 3 railroads. And we continue to say, what do we need to do to really transform this station, separate and apart from track and platform operations, to make it a better customer environment. And we also note the Moynihan Station project, which has an impact on the Penn Vision, and we're monitoring their progress as they go forward in their phase 1. The final item in our information.
Hold on, Any questions on either of those two items before we move to the action item? Charles?
I have 3 questions for you. First, to what extent, if any, are you providing flyers, brochures, or other informational devices to the people who use the railroad that tells them not only that there is a change of schedule, but why, so that they understand? For example, people complain about construction all over town. They have to understand that these things happen when you're trying to make progress. Are you doing that?
Yes, we are, and in fact, you're correct. We are trying to let our customers know that while the benefit of East Side access, will be tremendous for Long Island Railroad, there's some adjustments everybody's got to go through during the construction. We've done it through seat jobs. We're using customer handouts. We've done it in information sessions at Penn with Meet the Managers. We'll have even more handouts as we begin the July 6th, July 9th schedule of construction. We're also making station announcements. We'll have customer assistance personnel deployed as everybody gets used to the new schedule with the 3 trains missing. Because no matter what we say, people go looking in, where's my train? If that's their train, they'll go looking for it.
Second question, to what extent, if any, can you help alleviate the problem of missing trains by adding cars and making the train longer? Can you do that, and will you do that?
We are really maxed out on train car capacity. We use 12-car trains as mostly our standard where they can be accepted. On the main line and the Babylon branch, we really don't have a strategy where we can add longer trains. We are very well maxed out. I do have some areas in the future capital programs where we want to do platform extensions to accommodate more cars, but we're just not there right now.
The third is a troublesome comment on page 44 that we have to wait till 2035 before that garbage dump called Penn Station is made habitable. What can we do? I mean, is there any plan perhaps to default the vendor or the lessor of that space?
Let me just say that I agree with you. We can't wait until 2035. However, what we are trying to do is build a vision that is all-encompassing to 2035 with incremental steps along the way that make it a better station environment. So we don't expect, to say, oh, you've got to live with this mess until then. But it's interesting. Penn Station was last renovated it was completed in 1994. And in terms of capital program life, that was a very big investment. It was a lot of money, but it was almost 18 years ago.
It was built on my watch.
Yes.
And I want you to know that if it was still my watch, I'd condemn the blasted place.
We do want to point out that most of the retail on the north side is, of course, not under our control. It's under the control of Vornado. But we've been meeting with Vornado as a stakeholder. They would like to see improvements as well. They're motivated to assist us in getting a different station environment, a different retail mix, and most importantly, what we really need is a different layout. And that's what we've been examining, is what is a better layout for pedestrian flow.
May I make a request of you and perhaps of Jeff Rosen, who I saw a little while back, that perhaps sometime in the early fall we get a report to this board of what is being done, what we can do, bearing in mind that Amtrak runs it, and what we can do to make sure that those who operate and manage it try, they won't succeed, but try to come close to the standards of Grand Central Station.
I would be delighted. I'll schedule a fall update. We'll have a presentation by AECOM.
I appreciate the opportunity to come back to you in the fall with this. But Grand Central Station is in fact not a station, it's a terminal. It is a world of difference between Penn Station and Grand Central Terminal in its usage and its approach. Remember, talking about condemnation of the facility on the west side is, I think, very problematic language in the fact that it is the single largest rail facility in the United States, if not the Western Hemisphere. We need to be very, very careful because it needs to continue to operate.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree one iota. My point is simply this. No person walking into Grand Central Station or into Penn Station or any part of it can help but look at the fact that it's dirty, that the kind of facilities that are operating there are substandard, and it is far from the kind of experience that you will get at Grand Central Terminal. And my point is, what can we do? And the idea is, if you can give us some comfort in the fall, that would be most helpful.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to do that because we're well on the way to in that presentation and where we're going with AECOM.
Thank you.
Obviously, all of us who use Penn Station, I think I said it when Apple went to Grand Central. If my recollection was correct, my statement was, it doesn't make the people at Penn Station second-class citizens. It now makes them third-class citizens, for those of us who use Penn Station. I understand that, but that's okay. But obviously, there are a lot of things at Penn, some of which we control and many of which we do not control. But I think a presentation, for some of us, all we want to see is the sun at Penn Station, which, as you know, is impossible to do either. So all of these things are important to do, and I will make sure that in the fall we have a fuller presentation on those opportunities. You're welcome.
And I just do want to add the final comment that the timing is absolutely now. We will be building a program that's incremental in terms of how we get to a 2035 vision, but we've got to start identifying what do we want on the 2015 capital program. What are our initial investments that will make a change at Penn to the benefit of our customers? So we'd be delighted to bring that to you. A lot of work's been going on, and we'll update you.
Good.
Okay, our final item, which is an information item, it involves a property exchange at the Wyandanch Station with the town of Babylon. The town of Babylon has embarked on a program called Wyandanch Rising. It's an initiative to transform an economically distressed area on Long Island into a very vibrant mixed-use development that will both serve as an economic engine for Wyandanch and perhaps a model on Long Island for other TOD efforts. We are a key stakeholder, and we're very pleased to be participating in what we see as a transformative project. We have parcels of land adjacent to the track right away at the station that are key to the Wyandanch Rising development. And we have agreed with the town to swap property. They're providing alternate and very good proximate location to the station, new parking, new surface parking, over 300 spots that will replace the parking we're giving up and the land we're giving up. The value of their land is far greater than the value of our land. So from that perspective, we're coming out ahead. The most important issue for us is to maintain parking as well as to support the TOD initiative. So the balance of this project has been struck where we'll have the opportunity on this new parcel to do an intermodal facility, which will give us structured parking on that land that will add parking. Our goal is to have additive parking when we make a structured investment in structured parking. At the same time, maintain the availability of a key number of spots in different areas along the right-of-way, right in Wyandanch. But we've said to the village, to the town, we'll be flexible in where those spots are because we recognize they've got to have construction staging. So some of the spots may move to different locations. We're working through a binding a memorandum of understanding that talks about, the phases of the project. Meanwhile, we are moving forward and we'll ask for Finance Committee approval on the land exchange that will really get this project moving.
This is just for information item here.
This is just for
will be
information.
Voted on at finance.
Yes.
As a property disposition. Okay. Howard.
Okay, we had 4 items. Let me take them slightly out of order. First, on the schedule change, I mentioned that already. So there are a series of minor changes on the Harlem and, on the Hudson line, as well as on the New Haven line. And just again, in terms of the work, I didn't give you the numbers. By doing the projects the way we're doing them, we will be saving a little under $2 million a year. That's about 7% of the project cost by rescheduling how we do the work and taking on a little additional operational risk. Let me just go to number 4 for a minute. That's for your information, this will be also real estate. It's a lease modification with Garrison Plaza, whereby we'll be extending the lease. And we've gotten approval from Garrison Plaza, who we lease this lot. They own it. We will now be paving a good portion of the lot, the heaviest usage portion, and that's all included in this new agreement. What I would like to do is have a couple of minutes spent on 2 presentations on Grand Central, because I think both of them are very important. Randy Fleischer is going to talk about the Centennial, and this is something we'll keep you up to date with on a regular basis. And then Nancy Marshall will be speaking on the retail report. This is the regular report at Grand Central, both of which have significant amount of good news in them. Randy?
Thank you. Good morning. The material's on page 51 in the book. Grand Central will achieve its 100th anniversary on February 1st, 2013. The goal of the Centennial activities is to create international exposure, goodwill, and increased visitation to commemorate one of the world's great landmarks for commuters, retail patrons, MTA and Metro-North employees, New Yorkers, and tourists. And lots of activities have been ongoing. The vision intends to accomplish, and again, I'm just going to go through some of the highlights, really to recognize GCT's iconic role in the history of railroading, the building of a city and a nation, and certainly the cornerstone of the New York City Central Business District. There's planning underway for special events and exhibitions for 2013. We'll talk about those in a moment. The advancement of a GCT legacy project, which will be a lasting permanent improvement, which I'll touch on also in a moment. As we begin to move this forward, we organize ourselves a little bit differently. At the bottom, you see Centennial Leadership and Committee. We've organized a Centennial Advisory Committee. It's populated with 34 members. Folks include Spike Lee, Jesse Norman, Rosie Perez, Randy Levine, Arthur Sulzberger, and many others who are providing a deal of input to us. We met with them on May 9th when we convened for our first meeting. The leadership of the committees, however, is somewhat different. Peter Stengel, former president of Metro-North and MTA chairman, is the chair of the Centennial, and he is joined by Caroline Kennedy, who is honorary co-chair of the Centennial Committee. Parallel to that, MTA chairman and CEO Joseph Loda serves as the Centennial's honorary chairperson, and that represents a group of elected and appointed officials who are also going to weigh in and provide input into this process. On a day-to-day basis, Gabrielle Schubert, director of the Transit Museum, and myself manage the Centennial Affairs. In creating awareness of the GCT Centennial, the goals are pretty straightforward. Create awareness, visitation, strengthening the terminal's market position as an iconic New York City destination, celebrate the terminal as a landmark, boost terminal sales to augment what Nancy Marshall will talk to you in a moment about, the retail efforts, and certainly increase tourism. Marking the Centennial, we had the benefit of J. Walter Thompson on a pro bono basis joining our team, one of the largest ad agencies in the world, and assisting us with market research and strategies. The booklet you have on your desk in front of you was developed by them in conjunction with us and really represents a poetic story on GCT, the caliber of the marketing products you'll see. There's other efforts that are being augmented through a PR team, Goodman Media, Lead Dog, Centennial logo was created by Pentagram, MTA Marketing, and a whole host of others. We're looking to achieve alliances with the New York Public Library, New York's Historical Society, and other institutions to promote the Centennial both within Grand Central and on their respective properties. One of the key things to the Centennial, however, are some significant projects that we're going to undertake to mark the occasion. First, the Legacy Project, which is the restoration and revitalization of the GCT entrance at 89 East 42nd Street. It was one of the few entrances, it's on the left photograph there, that was not restored when the terminal was. And we've taken this opportunity to create a complete restoration process, ceiling, walls, floors, new lighting, restoring the marble, new doors, enhancing departure monitors that are nearby, cleaning outside canopies, and actually creating a permanent visual installation of GCT historic imagery so travelers can get a sense of the history of the terminal when they come into that space. We are performing the work with in-house forces with technical expertise provided by Beyer Bunder Bell, the architectural preservation firm that assists in the 1990s restoration of the terminal. The second centennial project is the Vanderbilt Hall repurposing, and then the extreme right, the former main waiting room, which we now call Vanderbilt Hall, really has a mixed set of experiences for the public. At times we have active exhibits in there that are inviting and enticing, and at other times it's empty. And we'd like to create a more consistent visitor experience. And by doing a planning for a potential multimedia digital platform, we're looking at a more standardized way to have default exhibits and other activities ongoing when major commercial exhibits are not. That multimedia platform will also support Arts for Transit programming and other venues, so that, again, the experience is bright, cheerful, and inviting when you come in from 42nd Street. We are doing an RFP for a firm to assist with that. Although it's not funded, we're going to look at the business case to see if these additional activities will actually provide the funding to make this work. Additionally, the other thing to activate Vanderbilt Hall, we're working with the MTA Real Estate Department in launching a new cafe. An RFP for that offering will be issued in the next week or so, and it'll be in the western portion of the hall, and will again achieve the goals of having a steady presence in Vanderbilt Hall. Other activities that are underway really center around four themes for the Centennial: the history, its status as a landmark, parade of historic trains, where we're going to actually bring back relevant historic railroad equipment for visitors and children to see. I mean, there are folks today who have never seen a sleeping car or a dining car. And the last exhibit, the future of Grand Central, with a heavy focus on East Side access. There'll be many sub-events that will focus around those themes. Some advance events that you'll see immediately. Coming up this July, the Transit Museum will be having its centennial-themed Kodak Colorama exhibition in their gallery. The Holiday Train Show will be coming up November, December, and the Holiday Fair, which I'm sure Nancy will talk to you about, will also be centennial-themed this year in November and December. There are many other plans and developments underway. The details are in your book. Just wanted to highlight the U.S. Postal Service has agreed to commission a U.S. postage stamp in honor of the Centennial. We're very excited about that. The Transit Museum is also releasing a book in a few months about the history of Grand Central, and there's a series of Arts for Transit programs that will be occurring as well. This all wraps around the need for funding. These programs require funding, and we've brought in Premier Partnership to assist and engage corporations and other individuals to underwrite the cost of these programs. We're pleased to report today that WABC TV and the New York Times are the first two we've partnered with, and actually as an additional information item in the book on page 57 and 58, we present those two consistent with our policy on sponsorships for the Centennial. WABC will be providing a series of in-kind services, including a 30-minute special on the terminal they will produce at their expense, and other vignettes and spots. The New York Times will provide the Centennial Program ad space, which we can leverage to then activate additional partnerships, and a full-page spread saluting the Centennial, and a photo exhibit as well. So we're very excited about announcing those partnerships today. We feel pretty confident we'll be back in July with the next sponsorship, which will likely be a cash deal. Publicity has been pretty extensive and ongoing. It's explained in the book, and we certainly look forward to coming back as a next step to the board in the fourth quarter with the details of the very specific programs that we look forward to launching. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Is Grand Central landmarked internally as well as externally?
Yes.
Both portions are internal as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Vanderbilt Hall being part of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Nancy, you want to just quickly?
Very quickly,
very quickly, because I know you've had a chance to read this, but we had a very good year in 2011. As you can imagine, the addition of Apple has been a super thing for the tenants as well as for the general public. Overall, it's still a little early to certainly give you full year answers, but revenues are up for tenants 6.25%, which is pretty helpful. And the tenants couldn't be happier. We continue to be 100% leased. However, as Howard and Randy have mentioned, we have new opportunities for leasing, including the Vanderbilt Hall Cafe, which extends also back to a space that used to be a salon. We were able to recover that space and add it into the footprint for the new cafe. This RFP actually is hitting the street today. So we've been actively speaking with restaurateurs who are interested in the opportunity. The opportunity can be as big as about 12,000 square feet with some backup house for kitchen and all, and a location, very successful location fronting on the shuttle passage that is currently hot and crusty. So we're very excited about that. Second very big opportunity is above the market. There always was planned to be a restaurant above the market with its own entrance off Lexington Avenue with an elevator and stair. Over the past years, that space has been used for other uses. We're looking at the opportunity of putting in a restaurant in about 4,700 square feet up there. So those two opportunities give us about 16,000 more square feet to lease, which is really good because we're pretty landlocked. I don't want to run through this more than I need to because you have had a chance. I can say that our sales for tenants year over year have increased. Most tenants in every neighborhood of the terminal. We have some exciting new media opportunities through our marketing. We've really focused on social media for that effort and not so much on posters and things and print advertising, because that seems to just be a much more realistic way to reach more people and get the message out.
Let me just add one thing. I think to Nancy's report, I think when you look at the report and you see the numbers, what you're seeing is a constant increase in the net revenues that are coming back to the MTA from Grand Central. And that is the result of extensive efforts between Metro North and MTA Real Estate to manage Grand Central as a first-class property, both looking at the cost side to minimize it and where we can increase revenues. And so I think it is really a terrific story when you look at over the course of years how much money is now being returned back, and without even capturing the great value it has to Metro North of getting people to ride the trains who come down, as well as making it a center of New York City and what it does for the whole surrounding area. But just in pure dollars, what you're seeing is the result of years of effort between the two parties working together. I think it's a very important point to emphasize because these things don't just happen. There's a lot of hard work that makes these types of results.
Questions? Charles?
Mr. Chairman, I think it is appropriate to congratulate both Howard and the people who have been working with him for their stewardship of Grand Central Terminus, for their efforts in maximizing the revenue, and most important of all, of making it a destination that does us all proud.
Thank you.
Of that there is no doubt. Congratulations again. You guys are doing a great job there. We can only get you two to move over to Penn. We'll steal you for a couple of months and hope that will have the same positive impact in that regard. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to procurement so we can get this done.
I have 3 non-competitive. They're all relatively small. I won't go through them in the interest of time. Basically, these are OEMs for different types of equipment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on any of those? Motion to move second. Any questions? All in favor?
Okay, and then we had 1 competitive with Management Mentors. This is developed to help us with our succession planning efforts. I will point out that the rates we have are available to other MTA agencies if they want to use them. We'd ask your approval.
Motion second. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Alina, page 80.
Yes, we have 3 competitive items. Two are small. One involves improvements to our wide area network, and one to Mayday Communications for voice recording equipment. But the large one is approval to award a design contract to HNTB Corporation in the amount of $11 million to design the first phase of the Jamaica Capacity Improvements Project. This is a project, we've been, highlighting for a number of years. We also will retain them to provide construction-based services during the project. It will include really critical infrastructure modifications that are important for East Side access, but also provide important improvements to the Jamaica operation today. And we ask for your approval.
Any questions, Charles?
Page 84, Brandon. How was that advertised and where?
Let's see. Brandon was the Brandon is the wide area network. Dennis, do we have the advertisement?
Let me again make the point. Well, I have a great personal affection and bond with the New York Post. I'm not sure every contractor in the state reads it. So may I suggest a wider advertisement at some future date?
We also advertise on our website, and that happens automatically on all of our procurements as well. For the most part, the state reporter, which is where we put it, is where all of the contractors go. We're required by law to put it in one paper of general distribution in New York City.
Any other questions? Motion to approve?
On the HNTB Corporation contract?
Yes.
The DMWBE, it says 10% women, 10% minority. If there's a woman minority contractor, they count in both categories?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
By law, yes.
Okay, so that anticipates that. Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor on these? Thank you. And capital construction. David.
Capital Construction has one non-competitive procurement item this month totaling $437,677. The item is part of the MTA security program and requests approval to award a negotiated miscellaneous service contract to Zetron Incorporated for the configuration and installation of Zetron voice communications equipment located at various Metro North and New York City Transit locations.
Any questions on it? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye. Yep. Did you do both? Or did you do
Capital
one?
Construction has one competitive procurement item this month totaling $335,000. And the item is located on page 87. The item is a modification to the ESA Queens Board Tunnel contract, and it's to modify the contract for additional level monitoring, water level monitoring and sampling due to changes to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation requirements.
We, in fact, are in the process of developing a new customer awareness program. We've been concerned about the rise in slip, trip, and falls, and are trying to get our customers to be less distracted with their personal electronic devices and pay attention to where they're walking. So we are working on that, and we'll be sharing that information with you in the fall.
But you see, the problem isn't so much, if I see if I can understand it at the bottom of that page, it seems to be in the area of increased problems on assaults, train doors, and the like. I don't think we can blame everything on electronics, if I may. It seems to me at some future date, if you could take a good hard look at this, these numbers are rising and it's troublesome.
Well, assaults we are working very closely with the police on in terms of monitoring, especially the overnight trains. That's why we did the alcohol ban on our overnight trains to try to get the crowd to settle down a little bit. But we will look very closely at these.
Will you please?
Yeah.
The second question I have is a familiar one. Standees, they continue to be significant. They continue to be in the same culprit areas, Huntington, Oyster Bay, or Washington, and Long Beach. What, if anything, can we do?
No. We continue to address, program standees in the best way we can. We're trying to make infrastructure improvements that we'll highlight in the 2015 program. We've talked extensively about Huntington. We do have, an effort, that we're trying to improve that connection at Huntington and make sure that we have more train availability. These are very key issues as we get to East Side Access as well.
Look at the large number of increases in Long Beach.
Go
ahead.
Right.
Commissioner Myrtle, Chuck, I think that these numbers are troubling. They are going to go up, though, in light of the fact that we will be reducing the number of trains with the East Side Access project. I think that, in coming in one of the questions you had asked earlier about whether or not we can have longer trains, and as Helena has said, we're going to need the capital money to expand our stations in various different places. So I think while we monitor this number daily, we're going to actually see it rise, especially when we have the reduction in the number of trains due to the outages connected to what we need to do in Harold and in the East Side Access project, including the Long Beach line, all of the lines this will happen to.
I respectfully suggest the following. The point you make is entirely accurate, that they're going to increase. But I think what we have to do is tell the people in Long Island, their legislators and their other representatives, that this is something that is happening. It's going to continue to happen, and it's going to get worse. But it seems to me as well that down the road we need to pay attention to what, if anything, we can do to avoid these large number of standees.
Now, I did, when I was at the Long Island Association a few months ago, while it was reported in Newsday, the thing that became overwhelming was the year 2019 in connection with the East Side Access project. That was there, and I've been spending an enormous amount of time, including last Thursday in Albany, with at least the senators from Long Island, making them aware of this.
Ira, do you want to add something
Yes,
to that?
on standees, I second what Commissioner Myrtle says, and I'm very happy that the Chairman's addressing a lot of these issues. I just want to make clear, just noticing the statistics, I know these are somewhat crude, but at any rate, it says that the additional standees reflect the impact of reduced train car consists. Does it reflect canceled or combined trains, canceled and combined? Would that show up here as well? If a Huntington train is canceled and you combine it with another train and there's overwhelming overcrowding, is that reflected in this statistic?
Not necessarily, because we may not have exact train counts, for those canceled combos.
No, I'm not saying whether it's precisely
right.
But it is reflected in some way. It's counted.
Before I commit to that,
okay, let's find out, because
yeah,
I wonder,
yeah.
because I've received complaints about Huntington being much more miserable than this would show, although this is average, so it could be, a few days
right.
are bad, you
right.
wind up with not a high number.
Right.
But everyone agrees we shouldn't accept this. And the last thing is increased train car assist, which is something someone has brought up to me, that there was a time when the railroad ran 14-car electrics, and I was surprised to hear that.
No,
I didn't
they don't fit into 10.
Well, that's what I thought. I was just going to ask about that.
They'd stick out the tunnel.
Right.
They would foul.
And they would foul
switches.
Right. They would foul switches.
Okay.
In fact, I have one, platform in Jamaica where a 12-car consist fouls a track. So we have to use that very judiciously in peak service.
So even though our specs require for all these equipment to run 14-car consists, we can't do it now.
We don't have the physical infrastructure to do it.
All of us who have been on the railroad, hear the announcements as to which cars do not open.
Right.
Because the doors do not open, because there's no platform to the doors to open in that regard. But that's a situation where, notwithstanding the fact that there may only be a 10 platform, there are 12 cars, and the railroad, because of the standee issue, and the railroad is asking people to move up, so if they have to get out at a certain station, they can.
Or plan ahead. That's
or plan
done a lot
ahead.
of, yeah.
Plan ahead, that's
or plan
what we
ahead and
asked. Right.
Be in the car that you know can open at the appropriate station where your station happens to be.
I mean, we would, that's something we do now.
We do that now.
And it would get,
Right.
no, I understand that,
Right.
and with 14-car concerts, it would get, but we can't even run 14-car concerts. Nowhere, because
Right.
Penn and Jamaica, we'd foul switches. Okay.
Right.
Chuck, could we decrease the headway time so that there would be more frequent travel in that point?
I would assume the answer, well, whether we have the train capacity, car capacity is one issue. Obviously, in the PM, that is impossible to do because the tunnels are not just being used by us, they're being used by, listen, we could solve all of these issues. We just throw New Jersey Transit and Amtrak out of the East River tunnels, and then we solve every issue we have. The problem is they're more likely to throw us out than we are likely to throw them out.
In September, when we talk about the vision for Penn Station, if I could be given leave to talk for 10 minutes about the operation of Penn Station and how many trains could literally fit through there in the rush hour. It is an important thing to look at because it is hard to imagine at the current capacity how any more trains could go in there. It is a classic bottleneck. I mean, it's only one way to look at it. There are a lot of trains we'd like to go through the tunnel. Only one can go through at a time. But I'd love to be able to go through and show you the headways, which are less than a few minutes, and most during the 4 to 8 time frame, 4 to 7 time frame.
Okay. I mean, it'd be good to see what is the restriction. Is it the capacity of the tunnels or the station?
It's
and
both.
Moving trains in and out of the
It's
station.
absolutely both. Yeah.
So if you relieved one, you'd
You
have to try to
then you have
address
to deal with the other.
And then there's
Exactly.
also the issue with the main line itself.
Right.
So Jamaica.
That's the less of the issue.
Okay.
It's the main line east of Jamaica.
Let's let all this. Joe has indicated he will come back.
Yes, I just want to make sure that's the framework.
Joe.
The issue of Penn Station itself and how Penn Station and East River tunnels operate together. So I think we should let that happen in that.
Joe, if you can expand when you do in September or whenever in the fall, because what I'm hearing is there are 3 bottlenecks to decreasing the headway. 1, Penn Station capacity, 2, the tunnel, and 3, some problem on the main line. To the extent we can we focus, or get us some information as to why we can't do this and what the major problems are?
We would add the yard as well, West Side
Absolutely,
Yard
the yard
capacity.
as well. But let me graphically. I'll sometime today. I'll bring the graphic down. I'll show you. You'll get a good feel for it.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Done anything else? Oh, that must signal the end of the meeting.
Transit will start in 5 minutes.